Today I have the great pleasure of hosting in our podcast Dave Stiles, Vice President of Operations at Eco Rental Solutions, one of the nation's biggest environmental equipment rental companies. We will talk about environmental monitoring and how we have been working together for over 14 years serving the industry. Hey Dave, welcome to Aethair's podcast.
Hey, Vasilius, great to be here.
Thanks for making the time today. So now let's start with a little bit about you and Eco Rental Solutions. So tell us a little bit about, specifically what you do at Eco Rental and what Eco Rental offers.
All right, we started Eco Rental back in 2011, and we saw an opportunity and a need in the marketplace for another player providing equipment to the environmental industry, and really to be focused on serving the customers as well as we could. You know, in the equipment rental business, we're providing equipment, but it's really a service industry, and a lot of what customers are paying for is for our services, for having the gear that they need on hand, for having it properly maintained and calibrated when they need it. You know, a lot of companies will buy equipment and then it's tough to keep up with the maintenance and the calibration, so they end up having stuff that they don't even really want to use. By renting it, we're providing something that's ready to go for the user. They can go in the field, they know it's going to work, and it's gone very well. We've gone from one office in Rochester, New York in 2011 to 8 offices nationwide currently, and have a lot of customers that appreciate what we do.
Yeah, actually, speaking, 2011, speaking about that, I mean, pretty much that's when we entered the market, and you guys were one of the literally very, very first clients. So this partnership now goes back to 14 years.
Yeah,
probably,
it's
right?
been a while. We're not getting any younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we haven't aged at all.
It's amazing.
So now, speaking about the environmental rental space, right? You did mention a little bit that, about the customers that you serve, but, also for our audience to really become a little more familiar with that, because I'm not sure that environmental equipment rental services are very popular outside U.S. So can you comment a little bit more about why it's so important? Why, in other words, companies don't buy equipment rather than renting equipment? Is it the service aspect that you said related to calibrations, or it's overall cost of acquisition?
Yeah, well, it depends. There are different types of customers that we have. There are big environmental consulting firms. There are small mom and pop industrial hygienists, and they may have different reasons why renting makes more sense. A lot of the firms don't want to be doing capital expenditures and doing that kind, the bookkeeping and other complications that can come with ownership of equipment. And then also they may only need it for a limited period of time, and then they don't want to have a lot of stuff on their books after they're done with that. Or they may own some equipment, but for a big project they need to get more. And for the smaller players, some of this equipment is amazingly expensive to purchase, and so if you just need it for a limited period of time, it can make a lot of sense to rent it instead for when you need it.
Yeah. So, and again, when we say environmental equipment, primarily we're talking about companies that are looking to do air quality monitoring or water quality or weather monitoring, right?
Yeah, all the above, and in addition, indoor air quality and industrial hygiene, even like noise dosimeters that they use to put on workers to see how much sound they're being exposed to determine if they need hearing protection. So the biggest parts of our business are air monitoring, including dust and toxic gases. But we do a lot with water quality also. So people that are investigating groundwater contamination, use different types of equipment, including pumps, but water quality meters and all that kind of thing as they're cleaning up those messes. And I think, one thing that I find satisfying with this kind of work is that, we're not out there cleaning up the environment, but our customers are.
Yeah.
And so, we're really proud to be part of that and to be supporting them with good equipment, good support, taking care of what they need. We're really, focused on the customer.
And I think, what is essential here is, first of all, and again, from the experience working together all these years, right? The customers, this particular group of customers that you're serving, they're in the business of, mission critical type of operations, right? In other words, it has to work.
Yes.
If it doesn't work, there is a big problem from, as little as a violation, which again can be very expensive, or in the worst case, people dying,
Yeah.
So, and again, from our experience working, with your company and your clients, has been that, we are obviously in the business of, doing the monitoring, right? In other words, transmitting the data that is captured by this equipment, whether it's air quality, weather, water. So, and our mission and our pledge essentially to you and to the clients has been always that we will deliver the message, we will deliver the data points, every minute, 24/7. And that helped us, especially going back, 14 years all the way to the maturity that the company has reached today, is to become much more serious of a company, right? Because the data matters.
Yes.
It's not like a consumer product that, okay, if it works, great. If it doesn't,
Yeah.
it's okay too, So, so which again, you bring a very good point when you refer to calibrations. Obviously, we're serving different industries, okay? And one of the things that always has surprised me, is that people make the false assumption many times that the instrument reports correct data. That in other words, not everybody puts the same emphasis on the calibrations, right? And tell me a little bit about that. I mean, and what kind of actions do you guys take, to make sure that every instrument that you ship, actually it's as perfect calibrated as possible? Because accuracy of data, it's probably more important than just data.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the accuracy of the data is the key thing. It doesn't, it's no good to have a bunch of numbers and to not be able to support,
Exactly.
to defend that data, that it's accurate, and that we can, prove that it's been calibrated properly and tied back to traceable standards. And one thing, there's a number of different ways that we handle that. One of our principal values and things that we decided right from the beginning is that we're going to use manufacturers to recalibrate instruments whenever possible. So there is always the temptation to send out, say, a sound level meter to a third party for calibration, which may cost less for that particular service. But to me, it's much more defensible to have the calibration data from the manufacturer done at the factory the way that it's supposed to be done. That way we know that it's done properly and it's defensible. There are other types of instruments, such as gas monitors with electrochemical sensors, where it's really not sufficient to have it calibrated at the factory once a year.
Yeah.
And for those types of equipment, we can calibrate them before every rental using traceable gases. trained technicians and test procedures to make sure that they're calibrated properly and that they're reading accurately when they go out the door.
And actually, to that point, because again, you take all the actions and the steps to do this correctly, right? You train the technicians and so on. Actually from our side, and this is something that we discussed also extensively, especially with some of the new products that we're bringing on the market, such as the Pro, the Aethair Pro, and then the existing ones like the Aethair IAQ. One of the actions that we have taken is to make sure that the calibrations are not just done, based on traceable gases or by doing good comparison with other reference instruments and so on. In other words, we're trying to eliminate the human factor error. Again, and the reason for that is we want to make sure that the data is as accurately captured as possible. So, and in order to make sure that that happens, we need the calibrations to be as accurately done. Mm-hmm. So any sensor that actually comes out of Aethair, it has to be approved essentially by the AI that runs on the calibration processes that we have developed over a period of time of testing. And that will determine whether the sensor is ready, whether that is a cartridge for the Aethair Pro or whether that it's, the whole device on the IAQ. And if essentially the machine does not determine that it's ready, it's not going to report any data. Because, again, going to the point of mission critical type of operations, we're trying to bring a whole new level of credibility, and responsibility, towards the customer, right? Because, that's in the end of the day, that's who we serve, right? So now, having said that, I mean, what is your whole view of the evolution now of this industry? With these new tools, new products, as we discussed earlier. And how do you feel that is going to morph or change in some ways the environmental rental space?
Yeah, boy, that's a big question. There's no doubt that on both the software, the AI side, and the hardware side, things don't stay the same forever.
Yeah.
As we were talking about earlier, in the environmental field, maybe things don't change quite as quickly or aren't as adopted as quickly as they are in some fields. But change does happen over time. And, some of those tools are going to shape things in the ways that are difficult to even imagine so far. But it looks pretty exciting.
Yeah. So, and actually, on that note, obviously, we recently announced the Noesis GPT, right? Which your team, your clients have been using. And to me, that was, I mentioned to you earlier also that this is one of the biggest milestones, over the past 14 years for our company, and the reason is because the impact that it has on being able to complete a task. In other words, it's thousands of hours, essentially, that it's cutting down from processing data manually, whether it's downloading the data from the instruments, creating reports, and so on. And, I think one of the most popular ones for you guys is the perimeter monitoring, right? So that's a very big, sector of your business.
Yeah, so perimeter monitoring, it basically is you have usually an environmental consulting firm that's doing a cleanup on a site, some kind of a remediation, and they're moving contaminated dirt around. And when you do that, you need to make sure that none of that toxic dust is migrating off the site where it could contaminate, other cleaner areas. So what you need to do is you monitor particulate levels and sometimes toxic gases upwind and downwind, and you make sure that you're not having more on the downwind side than you have on the upwind side, so that you know that you're not, effectively spreading any of that contaminated dirt around. So it's extremely important from, community standards that require making sure that residences and businesses aren't affected by that contaminated dirt. Yeah, you're supposed to be cleaning the stuff up.
Exactly.
You don't want to be spreading it around.
Yeah.
And
also I think that
a lot of tools that do that.
And that has to do also with the regulations like EPA, OSHA regulations. So, and there is like a lot of standards. Actually, the more interesting thing is that more or less every state has somewhat of a different standard that you need to comply with. Right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, states like California, which is famous or notorious, depending on your view, for its regulations, has a lot of regulations that are specific to California that may go, even beyond what's required nationally. New York has quite a bit also, but other states do too. So there's a whole web of regulations that our customers need to know and comply with, and we have tools such as yours that help them determine that they're in compliance with that.
Yeah, and essentially what we have tried to do is, again, based on the feedback that we have received, all this time from the customers, such as your company, like Eco and others, is that we have tried to incorporate as much of these regulations and reporting needs inside our platform within, in Environment and specifically the Noesis GPT, where essentially what we do is, so far we've done an incredible job showing the customers the data through Environment, see the trends, creating the alerts, upwind, downwind alerts, you name it, right? So, but what we saw the real need was, in the end of the day, was the reporting. And this is where people were spending most of the time. And again, perimeter monitoring is one. When you go to indoor air quality, that's another one. Think about having a building, 20 floors building, that you need to run some sort of like a verification for air quality, or whether it's compliant with WELL 2.0 or green building certifications. Now you can do it in like a few seconds.
Yeah.
I mean, that's I couldn't even believe it.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
So in a pretty short period of time, really, we've gone from, like 13 years ago or whatever, we were just looking at spreadsheets and tables of numbers, and people had to find ways to format it themselves and handle the data. And now, you've provided tools that can generate those reports and give people what they really want at the end of the day, which is, a report of the data. What were the conditions? Do I meet the compliance I need to meet? That's what people are looking for.
In the end of the day, that's what customers are paying for, right?
Yes.
I mean, do I meet compliance or I don't? And that's probably over 90% of our clients, at least in our case. I'm pretty sure in your case, it's probably 100% of the clients. They are doing this monitoring specifically for compliance purposes.
Yeah,
and health and safety, right?
Right.
Overall.
But yeah, primarily they're doing it because they have to. They're required to.
It's required to.
Right. So most people or businesses aren't going to go out and spend a lot of money doing that kind of work unless there's a real requirement that they need to do it.
Yeah. And I want to touch into something that you just mentioned a few minutes ago. You said we went from logging everything on a piece of paper to now having AI generating these reports. And, when we got into this business of, environmental monitoring, and as you know, we were the very first IoT platform in that space. I mean, the problem that we tried to address, back in 2011 was essentially automate the data collection process. I mean, I remember at that time, people would just leave equipment on the field and then go with a USB thumb drive, download the data, or connect via a serial port to a computer, download the data, or in some other cases, they would just go every so often and write it down, right? And that was something like, really amazing to me. And when we produced the theme, is that now enable any product in a plug-and-play fashion to connect and then bring the data to the cloud, to environ it, and people to see the data. I mean, that was like, a huge moment.
And I worked on some of those jobs. I worked for a consulting firm in the 90s, and I actually went out on jobs carrying 3 pieces of equipment and looking at the readings and writing it all down every 15 minutes. And it's boy, what a waste of manpower if you can avoid doing that.
Well, technologically, it wasn't that possible at that time, right?
Yeah,
but
we used what we had.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, but then, again, moving on, to me, I kind of relived that moment when we started working actually over a year ago on incorporating all these AI tools for automations. And although we have delivered, quite a bit, we still feel that we haven't even scratched the surface yet, based on what we have on the pipeline. Because now, essentially, we solved the very first problem, which was the data collection. Now we solve the other problem, which is automation, reporting, and actually creating conclusions automatically, whether you're compliant or not.
Right, and interpreting all that
interpreting the data, right? That's really the big thing.
Yes.
And then, the next kind of task for us is with this new product line, the Aethair Pro, which is simplifying the hardware side of the business, right? As you mentioned earlier, you needed to have 3 different type of pieces of equipment, and actually to this day, you still need to have that. It's just now you have, let's say, a device like a Themis that takes the inputs of all these different type of sensors and bring them, to the cloud as a single device, essentially. So now with the Pro, the approach that we have is, let's now create a hardware platform that you can add different type of sensors in a single, let's say, frame, and in a single hardware device. What do you think about that? And how, I mean, obviously, we have been developing this, we spent the past 2-3 years developing this, and we have been in communication with our customer base, including you. Now seeing it in reality, what do you think?
I'm excited about it. It's really, I think it's a very elegant design. It fits together nicely. It's made to be easily serviced. It's compact. It's rugged. I can see a lot of reasons I think it's going to do well, and it will. It provides a product that fills a lot of different needs. I'm excited to see how it goes and get it out in people's hands.
Yeah, and obviously, we have it now, released it for the past couple of months. The response is, overwhelmingly positive, and it's really beautiful because we have designed something that can serve many different industries. I mean, we talked about perimeter monitoring, right? It can be used for perimeter monitoring. It can be used, industrial indoor air quality monitoring. But one of the most, kind of never thought of type of applications that we'll see this device being used is used inside the cabins of heavy machine equipment.
Okay.
because of the 4G capability and obviously the different type of configurations that you can have. I mean, we've seen it anywhere from heavy machine equipments like trucks all the way to trains and buses and anything in between, So it's it kind of creates a whole new dimension of applications where air quality and environmental monitoring goes.
Yeah, as we were talking about that a little bit earlier, and I'm just trying to imagine new places we can take it and new things we could do with it. We obviously we have our core businesses dealing with perimeter monitoring and other applications we've discussed, but I just feel like there are opportunities out there that we haven't thought of yet. I'm excited to look into and talk to our customers about and figure out new ways to use this technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, thanks for your time today. Thanks for your business and the partnership. All these years,
it's been a good partnership.
It's been a fantastic
very
partnership.
Happy with it.
We are very happy to have you on board all these years and to many more.
Yeah,
we will wish.
Well,
right?
Thank you for building such a good platform for us to use and to share with other people. And I really do believe that in the environmental industry we're doing something important. We're not just selling widgets to people. We're helping the environment, helping clean up the world, and we really like being part of something positive like that.
And obviously, you guys have offices around the country, as you mentioned earlier, so people can reach out to ecorentalsolutions.com.
Yeah, we have
right?
Eco Rental Solutions, 3 offices in California, offices in St. Louis, Chicago, and Detroit, and 2 in New York, one down towards New York City and one up in Rochester, where we started. ecorentalsolutions.com, and good website, so look us up. And I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you.
Take care.